Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's another episode of ATL On Fire, the podcast where we talk all things Atlanta United Football Club. And we're about to stop talking about Atlanta United Football Club because we're not going to the playoffs, Dave.
Are you sure?
It's finally confirmed.
Oh.
We can stop scraping with some hope. Carmen, I know you and I were hopeful, but I think the realism was it was never going to happen.
Yeah, to the bitter end, I was hopeful, but yeah. Oh, well.
So, Dave, you brought us a wonderful bottle of wine tonight because I always looking at the vintage. I know whether you're treating us right or wrong. And that doesn't mean everything, but 2017.
Yep.
It's Italian Chianti.
Yeah. Familia Castellani.
Anything else do you know about this wine? You ever had it before?
I've had it. It's delicious. I really don't know that much about Italian wine, so I mean, it's a very nice Chianti.
I've become a big fan. The DeKalb Farmers Market's got a nice selection, and
yes,
we've been doing the I forget the region, but I'll butcher.
We no longer have to be superstitious and bring the. I was bringing the really really good wines, and we were losing, and so then I kind of knocked it down a bunch.
Yeah,
and that was helping. Obviously. But then we're out of the playoffs, so now I can bring the fancy wine again.
So
that's how I roll.
We only have one game to recap. We're on our game again. And I watched the game. It's one of those things where I'm you just know it was a bad game from my memory of it. I just remembered not being pleased throughout the entire game.
Should we go over our predictions from last podcast?
Yes. I mean, our predictions were we should win.
You said
but
you
we
thought
won't.
They were going to win, but then you qualified it by saying that if we played the lineup that we were talking
That's
about,
okay.
which was very unlikely. Right. So that was kind of
well. Let's start with the lineup then. Is that fair?
Well, I wanted to start with one more thing before that. I just wanted to set the stage for this.
Okay.
Right? So we have to win, and I predicted that Pineda would blow it. And he would get out coached by Bruce Arena, and we would lose on the road in horrible fashion. So that was pretty much right. But set the stage, right? So our so-called, resurgence, if you will, the team was playing better according to everybody. But I wanted to point out, and I sent you and Carmen this before the game, right? That so in our last 10 games leading into this final match against New England, we had scored 16 goals, okay? Of those 16 goals, right, Parata scored
5, right?
5. Gutman
3
scored 3.
Right.
Josef Martinez scored 3. Almada scored 3. Sosa scored 1. And Cisneros scored 1 10 games ago.
Right.
Okay. So I think
that's the important thing with Cisneros. 10 games ago.
10 games. So he hadn't scored in the previous 9, despite starting. He wasn't starting the last few of them because he got replaced by Dom Dwyer. But he started most of the early part of that. Dom Dwyer started the end part of it. And the bottom line is neither one of them scored in all those starts. Okay, here's the 3 observations. So first of all, the defenders in the last 10 games had scored 10 of the 16 goals. I included Sosa. If you don't include him, it's 9 out of 16. But regardless,
he's a defensive player.
He's a real defensive player. What do you think it says about the team when your defenders have scored 10 of the last 16 goals?
Well, it means that you've got it all backwards. Is this a trick question?
No. It's an actual question.
It's actually. I'm
asking you. I don't really know the answer.
No, it means you have it all backwards, Dave, because it means that what we talked about, even through injuries, right? We've still had people who are healthy who are our attacking players,
right?
And we've been talking about it all season on this podcast that Pineda has been too liberal with his not holding the back 6 back, right? So that there is a very strong cushion of defense with the back 4 and the 2 that are in front. And you're going to score if you don't play that way. So I think that's why we have seen goals, because he likes to push people up And yeah, I mean, over time, you are going to get some goals from a talented player like Gutman or Sosa, who knows how to rip a shot.
But even Gutman, actually, I think at least one of them, maybe two of them, came when he was playing one of the three center backs. So, all of our wide glory, right? All the wide play that we've had, they haven't scored.
Right.
It's double ironic, right? Because it's not just the defenders scoring. It's the defenders who don't go up very much who are scoring.
Well, I think
I missed one. I think Franco scored one in there.
I think you got to give Purata credit, too, for the 5 he had. I mean, I think 4 of those were at least with his head, if not all of them.
I think they're all with his head.
Right. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
That's just smart by getting him up there. So you just got to give him credit for doing the right thing and getting his head on the ball and putting it in the net. So that's kudos to Purata for the 5, right? And maybe that's a little bit of an anomaly on why it's so high. But it does beg the question of why we're not scoring goals with the offensive talent that we have with the Almada, who's doing okay, but maybe not as well as he should. Certainly, Josef Martinez, the numbers could be higher. We'll talk about that on why he hasn't been starting. Araujo, a real head scratcher. I think as the season went on, he's almost like frustrated at this point, obviously. And, he has been moved around a lot. So he's been asked to go into his not inverted position. And then all of a sudden you see him on the right side again. And Moreno's not in the game. It's not adding up on how you get the most from our attacking team. And I think this last game, Dave, when you look at the starting lineup, it speaks to maybe not exactly the question you're asking, but boy, have you seen anybody, or when's the last time we saw Brooks Lennon or Amar Sedic score a goal, or Cisneros, to your point? It was 10 games ago.
Sedic, 0.
Does Lennon have any? Maybe one, I'm guessing. I don't know.
No.
But he's certainly not a powerhouse. Araujo has been off, but I think that's because of all the shifting around.
I don't think, a lot of people think he was going to score. He didn't really score even when he was at Lille. I don't think he's a score guy. He's a very offensive, creative guy, but and maybe in this league he could score some goals. But
right, if you play him like we've been saying, which is bomb down the left and whip in across, which he's fully capable of with, Josef Martinez, Moreno, and Almada coming in. Goals all day. So the starting lineup against New England, Dave, was...
Wait, can we get one more second before we get to that?
Do it.
So the other two things I wanted to point out about this is that, second thing is Josef Martinez, despite not starting any of those matches, really, maybe he started 1 or 2 in there, but basically despite not starting them at all, right, he has scored 3 goals, right? So he's outscored Cisneros, he's outscored Dom Dwyer. Those are the guys who've been starting all the matches, right? He's only coming in for the last few minutes, and he's equal scoring with Almada, right? And you brought up some interesting statistics, so maybe you tell people.
Yeah, so, what got me looking at the statistics, and it was funny, we totally agreed, and that's exactly what I was looking for, this little nugget of data on the 33 games and who is leading the league in goals, which is Mukhtar from Nashville. He's got like 23 goals, I think.
Yep.
Josef Martinez has 9 goals.
9.
Mukhtar has double the minutes of Josef Martinez.
Right.
Okay. So now I'll just, what's also happened on Twitter with all the people talking about it is like, in me saying he should have started all this time.
Yeah.
In particular, start when you see Cisneros and Dom Dwyer's goals not happening. It's not that, I'm okay with him at that part of the season. That mid part when Josef was just getting back from injury, Cisneros had to be knocked off his pedestal a little bit, but you know what? He didn't do anything to stay on that pedestal. And at some point, the rice and chicken's going to flip. And it did, and rightfully so. When you go 6 games of a guy who's younger than the star player in the team not scoring goals, this is damning to Pineda, in my opinion, and it's why there was that conflict. But that data talks to what probably could have happened. He could have had probably 6 or 7 goals in that time frame.
Sure.
And for all the people out there who say,
even with as terrible as we were offensively,
but
we didn't score a lot of goals.
But the Twitter argument out there was that he can't go 90 anymore, and I call BS on that. If we play the right way, it's not like even in that game where he came in in the 54th minute against New England. It wasn't like he's running around. I mean, that's not his style of play, particularly with the talent we've talked about we have on this team. He can be that poacher. He can be a pure number 9. Doesn't mean he doesn't need to work back sometimes, but it's not like he needs to be like the marathon guy in the field.
I think it's interesting. There were some statistics about, Martinez maybe needs to go. And then they were like, okay, he hasn't, he's like almost like in the bottom 10% in pressing of all forwards. But I'm like, he's been in the bottom 10% of pressing all forwards, even when we won the MLS title in 2018. Right. So what is the difference?
And I want to say, because I was, very questioning of Josef Martinez's future as a soccer player at the beginning of the season. Right. And, I think is where I got off of that, right, is he was scoring out of the gates when he had minutes, and then he had the light fix on his knee and was out for what, like a month?
Yeah.
And, and by all accounts, right, it was like a pretty minimal surgery, and supposedly he was able to get back pretty quickly.
Yep.
And that's everything Josef has said, too, on his recovery. Like, he was, like, ready to go. And it's okay to be conservative, like 1 or 2 games. But then if the player is like, hey, dude, I'm ready to go, and he's your guy, and this is his window, he might have like 1 or 2, like, all-star type of seasons left in him. Why not let the guy play, Dave? Like, and I've busted on him early in the season. Like, maybe he's lost a step. Maybe he doesn't have it. But then you look at the data, right? And Pineda is supposed to be a data-driven type of coach. It was clear as day that you should at least give him a chance to prove that he can do it. And if not, then give him 3 games and be like, hey, man, I gave you the chance.
I just don't see how Pineda is a data-driven coach with some of his decisions.
No, but you're right. But I think you're the one who's saying, from his Seattle
he was supposed to be
heritage, he was supposed to be, right? I'm just saying that.
Stuff,
clearly not. I mean, when I looked at that spreadsheet of the data I pulled, I was just shocked.
Yeah, I think he's a coach who, one thing that has revealed is that as the season went on, and this happens when teams are losing, but he kind of is definitely holding grudges against people.
Yeah.
Right? He's very stubborn, not in a stubborn, even just in a tactic way. Like, they're players who are, we always go back to Moreno, right? So, okay, maybe Martinez is controversial because Arroz Campoyo and all his other, outbursts, but nobody said anything like that about Moreno, and yet he was the leading player of minutes and the leading scorer for the first third of the season. Yep. And in the last third of the season, he basically didn't play at all. So what happened?
We don't. And no one seems to know. I do think. Where there's smoke, there's fire. He's holding grudges. He's got very bullish opinions on whether the person's practicing hard, whether they have the right attitude, or there's something else that's a factor. But certainly not enough of a factor for Moreno to be not on the bench, right, and not being subbed in. And that's what really gets me, like, even in this last New England game, so heated that I'm fine with everything out of the back with.
Yeah, so let's go to your starting lineup now.
With Gudiño as goalkeeper, yes, it's our only option. And then we've got, Peralta and Franco in the middle. We've got Gutman and Hernandez on the right. Now, a lot of people out there probably, it's funny, I think people don't think of Hernandez as the proper starting right back, but we do. He's very defensive. He's a Venezuelan national starter. Or gets starting minutes often there.
Yeah, in the third minute of this game, right? Hernandez is tracking back, and there's a cross from the opposite side, from Gutman's side, right? And he comes flying back in at the last minute and makes a great clearance to poke it over our own end line wide of the goal, like going back to his own goal. I have never seen Lennon make that play ever. Right, that's a true defender, right? And that honestly saves a goal. I think, to be honest, if that's Lennon in there from the beginning, that's 1-0.
So that's our back, and I'm good with that. And here's where it starts to fall apart, or wait, after Sosa, who's sitting in front of those 4.
Yep,
perfect. Now, at least on paper, Dave, the way that they had it online here is it's a 4-3-3, and on the right side, you've got a Marcetic, Sosa in the middle, and then to the left we have Almada.
But that's not actually how they're playing it.
So that's what I was curious. That's how they put it on paper. It didn't seem. Yeah. That's why I'm bringing up. It didn't seem like they played that way.
No.
So okay, I'm assuming you've got, Almada slightly in front of Sosa in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, it's Almada and Sejdic sort of right in front of Sosa a little bit as a 3 center midfield.
So
nobody's out wide.
So it's really more of like a 4-1-2-3 or something.
To be honest with you, it's basically a 4-5-1, right? Because Araujo and Lennon are playing basically as wingers, as midfielders, right? There's a 3, a defensive and 2 attacking midfielders in the center, and only really one up top.
So on the paper here is not really how they play, but anyways, a 4-3-3 or 4-5-2.
It depends whether you describe a 4-3-3 or 4-5-1. All it depends is whether those wingers are forward. Then there's 4-3-3. If they're back, it's a 4-5-1, right? And I would have said that Araujo and Lennon are not the kind of guys who are up all the time, so it's much more of a 4-5-1.
But what struck me is just asinine is, like, at least on the paper, is like on the right side you've got Hernandez, Amar Sejdic, and Lennon. Like, all 3 of them have. I mean, go ahead and just move those guys out of Hernandez's way, because Hernandez can just play defense, and if he needed to make a run up the wing, the rest of them are just probably killing space for people who know how to take it, like Almada and what would be Josef Martinez.
Ironically, Hernandez is actually really, really helping Pineda because he's bad at what Pineda wants him to do, right? Yeah. Pineda wants the outside backs to bomb forward. That's the only consistent thing that's been all season. And Hernandez is not good at it, and he doesn't feel comfortable doing it. So he tends to hang back a little bit.
But why would you? So, sorry, just talking to this lineup, right? So it's just on paper, again, it was a 4-3-3 is how they have it on the official site here.
Yep.
So, across the middle 3, you've got Amar Sejdic on the right, Sosa in the middle in front of the back 4, and Araujo on the left, right?
The left, yeah.
And then in front of that, you have who is in front of Araujo?
Nobody. The front 3.
No. Sorry.
Sorry.
So sorry. Now I got the middle 3 wrong. It was Amar Sejdic, Sosa, and Almada.
Right.
And then in front of Almada, you have Araujo, Cisneros, and Lennon.
Right.
Of course, I want Lennon off the field and Moreno in. I want Sejdic off the field and call it Ibarra or Josetu in, whatever you prefer based on the game. And this one, I'd probably say Josetu. But why regardless of the formation, why would you put Amar Sejdic like in Almada's space to, if it's up in front? It just makes no sense, especially when you have like someone out on the right that, Almada's going to be able to play it out wide to Lennon. If you wanted it to be Lennon to start, I'm okay with that. Again, I would say Moreno would be my preferred, but, Almada would be able to whip those little kind of nice little arcing passes out to Lennon. Lennon could put a cross into somebody to score. So it just felt all wrong to me in terms of the players and at least what was on paper as far as the starting
I think
lineup.
Lennon, as whether he's a winger or whether he's one of the 3 forwards, I'm more comfortable with him on that role than I am as a right back, particularly in this system, because as a right back, he's not good defensively.
And also another thing I want to bring up, again, this is a total change from everything we've seen before, right? This is not consistency. Like
Well, we've been playing this formation now for the sets of games where we're playing better. It was Dom Dwyer was the only one who was different in this lineup, but everybody else was the same.
Well, but okay, fair enough. But at least, so how does the paper get put like this then? Because at least on the official paper, it doesn't line up like this.
No, that's just wrong. That's when they, this coach just put down something and whatever, and what that means is that Pineda sees it a little bit more as Lennon and Araujo are forwards rather than wingers, right? So that's the 4-3-3 aspect. So he's playing but that's not correct in that he's playing nobody out wide as a winger if those guys are forwards. The three guys are all central. It's Almada, Sejdic, and Sosa in like a triangle, right? With Sosa being the base of the triangle, the point of the triangle is at the defensive, right?
But so exactly. So that's my point is why would you put Amar Sedic anywhere in front or side next to Almada?
Well, why
that's
would you put him
exactly
in the game to begin with?
No, that's what I'm saying. I feel like we'd almost be better off.
So what does Sedic give you?
If he got pulled off the field, I think we would have been better off.
So, Sedic is supposed to be an attacking player, but he hasn't scored. He doesn't score. He's terrible defensively, right? Josetu hasn't scored either, which is surprising. But Josetu, I think, Sedic, to be honest with you, maybe if you give him something, you'd say maybe he's capable of delivering, the killer pass, maybe even better than Josetu. But he's not capable of playing, keep it moving on fast, right, as Josetu does. He's not as good defensively as Ibarra. And if you look at our team, right, you need either an extra defender in there, which is probably the answer, or at least you need a guy who's going to move it on to the other guys quickly. If you're Sedic, right, and you're good at, let's say, playing some through balls or whatever, I think that's his strength. Who are you playing to? I mean, the old Araujo for sure, but Lennon's not going to run by people. Almada's not going to run by people. Cisneros is fast, but he still never runs by people, right? I don't know who he's playing to in this situation.
Which, again, just the more the season has gone on, that 4 in the back and 2 defensively minded people just right in front of them really makes the most sense for this team. That way, no matter who the front 4 is, even if you give Cisneros a start every once in a while, or Josef Martinez, who I think it obviously should be, you have someone like Sosa who can step up into that space, move it quickly out to Araujo or Moreno or Lennon, whoever you want to be out on the right forward side. And it'll be going like this.
Here's the ultimate irony.
And we will not be giving up goals because we have Gutman and Hernandez who know what defense is, but they also can make runs up if they need to.
The ultimate irony of the whole thing is that the thing that is inhibiting us scoring is Pineda sending the outside backs forward. And the reason why it's inhibiting us scoring is not only are they not open and giving us good options, but it's even worse than that because we cannot win the ball at midfield. We never do it. So we never recycle the ball. And we always have to go back. So when you can't win the ball at midfield and they're already up the field and they're not helping us, now you're vulnerable with the counterattack. You're not winning the ball up the midfield to give your attackers really good possession where they don't have to break down a whole set defense, right? You're doing nothing of the things that you want. So ultimately, it is our attacking more that is preventing us from scoring goals.
Right.
Which is really, ironic. And, the funny thing is, I mean, Pineda was flailing about all year. And the only thing he absolutely refused to concede is that part. He never, no matter what. And we showed it in the ultimate laughable, aspect of it where, as we talked about in last week's podcast, when we finally go up by a goal in a game we absolutely need to win, he's still doing it. You're like, what?
So do you want to go to the tape and call out a few things in this New England game, or are there anything else you want
to? Sure.
Yeah. Highlights it is. So this game, when did this happen? This game, was this last Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah, Saturday.
Okay, Saturday. God, what a beautiful day in Atlanta.
Yeah.
The weather here has just been stellar.
It has been great.
I think that was the concession of watching a very difficult match. It was a nice day. I was cooking a pork butt on the Big Green Egg, Dave. I know you can appreciate that.
That is good.
Oh, it's great.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, I got up at 7 a.m., got the charcoal ready, had the thing ready to go by 8 o'clock, dialed into 225, and yeah.
So if you go, Carmen, to the 12th minute, which I actually don't have the time of the clip because I've been...
You're ill-prepared.
Yeah, we are ill-prepared. There you go. It's just after this one.
I got to put on my glasses anyway, so all right.
So basically, I'll set the stage, right? This is exactly what we were talking about last week, right? So one of the things that we said is
this the one you have the still photo of where everybody's stacked up on the top?
But you can show it on the highlights first. It's a little bit further back. It's in the 12th minute, Carmen.
Oh, back.
To 15, yeah. Just before this. Anyway, so we're trying to play the ball in midfield, right? And we have the classic. So our two backs are Parada and Franco are pretty far up the field. They're only like 10 or 15 yards beyond, in our own half, right? The outside backs have bombed forward, right? They're really far forward. And and they're not under a huge amount of pressure. And we were talking about this, right? I was saying this is a nightmare, right? Because if you're a coach, you don't want to play against a completely set team with your outside backs out and stationary, because you're asking your center back to split the line. And if they make a mistake, you're now counterattack city and they're going to give up a goal, right? And we were talking about how, well, it depends on you should be able to execute that. And I said, here's the problem though. As soon as you execute that, if they're all set, you split the lines to Almada, let's say, and even Almada, who's our best player on the ball, right? He's going to be closed down, tons of space, and then his only really good option is to play it right back to Parata or Franco, or even all the way back to the goalkeeper. Because if he tries to turn in that moment and gives it up, we are in big, big trouble, right? And my what I said about that is I have two problems with it. A, it's too dangerous coming out of the back, but I'm okay with danger if it really gonna get you something fantastic. If you're gonna take that chance, it better be for a situation where if you execute it, you're gonna have a really good chance. And my point is, even if Almada makes an amazing turn and executes it, he's just one step up the field. They still got everybody comfortable back.
So now one counter argument to that. I know it's a different level, but just in terms of that idea, playing out of the back in the EPL is the standard. You could argue that if you make a pass like that in the EPL and the guy gives it up at the top of the 18, counterattack City from the worst spot possible. They do that all day long on Saturdays in the EPL.
Yes,
and the
yes
reason
and no.
the reason they can do it confidently is they are just that much better on the skill on the ball. And that was my argument the other day with Parata not being pressured. He should have the skill to play to a highly skilled player like Almada, who hopefully will play at the EPL level at some point in the future.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. That was my counterpoint.
But here's
to
the thing,
that whole thing.
Here's the thing, like Dobbs, is that even when you see it executed in the Premier League, it doesn't lead to goals in the Premier League either, right? You do not score goals, not very often. Most of the goals in the Premier League are coming off of counterattack situation or winning the ball further up the field and turning it over.
But no,
right, free play.
There are some goals that happen
many.
Pretty frequently from boneheaded playing out of the back EPL games.
Boneheaded, you mean giving it away out of the back?
Well, right, which is the same thing as
I'm just saying. I'm talking about offensively. So if you split the lines well, right, and let's say Parata plays to Almada and he turns,
which
the
is
ball,
what
whatever.
you're about to talk to on the highlight
right?
here.
But let's say in the Premier League, which they do that all the time, they might execute it more and not screw it up. Right, but my point is, even when they execute it properly in the Premier League, it doesn't lead to a counter and a goal against you, but it also doesn't lead to a goal for you. You hardly ever break a team down from the back completely against a set team. It hardly ever happens. I'm not saying it's never happened, but it's very rare.
Sometimes, I mean, I feel like I see it a lot in the EPL. Like
the statistics say you're wrong.
They are so fast though. Sometimes like coming out of the back, like when it really breaks and they play like 3 really nice passes in a row. Everybody's off to the races, especially when Erling Haaland's on your team.
Yeah, so I think, if you play the clip, was where they got the highlights is sort of right at the end here. We've already given up the ball, and it goes on the breakaway. So just let it play, and you'll see what happens, and then I'll set the stage.
It's a cheap giveaway. Heel.
Cheap giveaway.
Full out sprint. And he's going to take the shot off the bar.
So he runs 40 yards.
Okay,
you can pause it. So he runs 40 yards with Almada chasing him the whole time. But here's the damning thing, right? So Almada gave up the ball, and he chases him down and does at least a decent job putting a little under pressure. But he gives up the ball, and that guy runs 40 yards, never makes a move, never does anything straight through. And none of the defenders are even in the picture.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a problem, right? So that's what I'm saying. Now, I'm going to show you. Do you have the photo? Can you pull up the photo that I have?
Thank goodness we have Carmen back. It's so much more relaxing day. I was so stressed out, Carmen, last week.
The other one?
Yeah. trying to figure it all out. This is so nice.
Okay, awesome. This is beautiful. This is way better. So
I know, right? It's all coming together.
But you guys can thank Carmen for the better clip. So what I have it is I took a picture of the television, right? And I paused it right at the moment before that, right? So what's happened here is that's Purata on the ball, right? And actually, it looks like we have three back in the middle, three in the back, but it's Sosa who's dropped in between the back two, and as you can see, he's taken off up the field because Purata has the ball, right? And so he's like, oh, we're trying to split the lines. I'm going to go up the field. We're not going to lose it here, right? So basically, it's the situation we're talking about. Purata's under slight pressure, but he's not really under pressure. He's going to play forward, and Almada is checking back to the ball, right? And he's in a fair amount of space, but New England is very organized. And so what's going to happen here is that as soon as Purata plays the ball into Almada's going to be under pressure from three players.
And so Almada is at the top of the screen in this image.
He's the one. There's one guy who's all the way out on the touchline. That's actually Hernandez, who's standing literally on the touchline. You can hardly see him.
It looks like he's going to sub in, right?
Yeah,
but no, in front of him's Almada.
That's our right back in a shambolic
But in front of him's Almada,
right?
which Purata's looking straight at him is going to play to.
And you can't actually see there's
So,
a little glare, but there's two New England players who are running straight at Almada.
Okay, but here's where I'm already just going to say,
Yeah.
sorry, this is my whole point. Like, Almada absolutely should never lose the ball from a pass that's being played by Purata to him. And it doesn't mean that there's not but I'm just saying, like, statistically, that shouldn't happen because you shouldn't lose the ball there. Like, that should not happen as a pro player.
Okay.
Because you are putting your team at risk no matter what if you can't.
And he doesn't really lose the ball. What he does is so what happens is they play it to him. He traps it beautifully. But those two guys from New England come up and pressure him right on the back. And the forward actually drops back, and they get three guys around the ball, right? And so when that happens, he actually makes a beautiful touch. He dribbles out of it a little bit. And then he tries to beat both defenders with a little slip ball.
You're right, I remember that.
And he makes a bad pass, and he turns it over.
Yeah.
Right. So he doesn't lose the ball, but he's trying to create something. And my point is, if he creates that, let's say he makes a brilliant move, which he usually does, and he creates that. And I think he actually, to be honest, he tries to play Sosa coming out of the back, playing through. But let's say he slips Sosa in and we break that line. Right? That's really good for us because we now have Sosa running in space and they have all the backs. But they still have their four backs. They have their defensive midfielder back, right? It's not like it created a situation where we're definitely going to get a chance.
So can I ask you, just looking this still, I don't know do you remember what happens next with Hernandez?
Hernandez is out there the whole time. He hardly moves.
Hardly moves, right? Which... Is that the problem, though? Like, if we are a defensive-minded team, right?
Yes.
And you say, hey, anytime Almada gets the ball, let him be creative, and you always check back into a more defensive position. If that is the coaching remit, then Hernandez should be moving back immediately as Purata makes that pass to cover any sort of counterattack could happen if a skilled player like Almada loses it, trying to take somebody on creatively. Because that's what we want. That's exactly what we're saying. We actually want Almada in this exact situation to be able to turn, take people on, if Hernandez is back. If
want
Gutman
Hernandez
is back.
back.
Because who's on the front of the screen here on the left back type of position here?
Franco's looking like the left back, and you can't even see Gutman. He's so far up the field. He's actually cut off.
Who's that in the dead center back? Is that Sosa?
Sosa's dead in the center back, yeah.
Why is that happening?
He's dropped in between the back two, which is what their solution is, so that we don't have two in the back, right? He's had this all season, right? He's had the center back either dropping this
is highlighting exactly what we've been talking about. So why if you could say that Hernandez is too far up here if Gutman's up at equal position,
he's
right?
Equal, basically.
We're saying only let one of them go up. And in this case, again, we've got two up. And now that's forcing Sosa back.
I would argue you should have 0 up in this case because if you're playing out of the back and Purata has the ball.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I think Hernandez has to be up wide a little bit to open the space for Almada. But Gutman should certainly not be up. He should be back so Sosa can be up, and then everything shifts more to the central mid.
This is what I was talking to you about. Instead of playing Almada there, they're skipping a pass. So if Hernandez was back 20 yards or whatever, basically standing right at midfield. Then Purata plays him a very easy ball.
Right.
He gets to lick his head up, and now we're playing from there into Almada.
Yeah.
If that pass gets intercepted, Purata's still back right in the middle. We don't give up a breakaway.
Yeah.
Right? It's just stupid, right? It's stupid on so many levels. And in the Premier League, you don't see it because normally there's an outside back he plays to.
Right.
Right? And there's no gap like that. You also wouldn't have Franco so wide like that, right? I mean, it's a crazy aggressive formation from here, right? They are hyper aggressive right here. And my point is, right? So look at the start of the play, right? Is Hernandez at right back or is Gutman actually helping you at all?
No.
Can he play either of those players?
No, and in fact, right, I mean, I'm assuming I don't know what Araujo's over there somewhere. Why would you need Gutman over there?
So his only option is to try and force a split the lines ball, which is what we were talking about. And when you're playing that into there, that's what they want. They want Purata to play into there where they can now pressure Almada with 3 guys and hope that he makes a mistake.
I appreciate that we're bringing up the same points of the outside backs, but I think this is very different than the last play where we were really talking more of like a long ball or a longer breaking of the lines. Probably breaking 2 lines is what I think would have happened in the last one we were analyzing.
Yeah.
This is basic ticky-tack soccer that, to your point, why not play it just wide to Hernandez, play it into Almada, and then off to the races? It's a little more compact, a little more safe on any sort of a counter.
We get nothing offensively out of this. If as I said to you last week, if I'm the New England coach, I'm drooling at this scenario because I'm like, good luck. Go ahead and try to play into our totally set up, organized defense. You're going to have to, even if you make it a brilliant play, right, we're still fine defensively. And if you make a mistake here, we're going to get a breakaway or ram it down your throat.
But even just to this, for the watchers that see this on YouTube, imagine a world where Gutman is back. That's, I think, the most important takeaway, right? Even if you just simplify it to that, Dave.
Gutman is back and Hernandez is much further back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a whole shift that kind of...
Then Sosa doesn't have to do this madness about running in between our own 2 backs, right? Sosa would be up the field.
And then,
right? And if Sosa's up the field, then now there's no way for them to run through our middle at all.
Right. And then, Almada's making that run from a little deeper back, which makes that an option and or out wide to Hernandez again.
And granted, most of the time when you try to build out of the back like this, as I was saying to you, like this is not how you score goals in modern soccer. It doesn't happen very often where you start with your center backs, they have all 11 behind the ball, and you break them down and score. It happens, and you still want to break those lines because the reason you want to break the lines here is not necessarily to score. I mean, yes, of course you want to score, but that happens so rarely. The reason you want to break the lines in this kind of scenario is so now you can turn the tables on them, force them to make a bad mistake and give it to you in a good spot. But the problem with Atlanta United is we never do that. Ever. And the reason why we can't do that is you're seeing it right here, right? Gutman and Hernandez are so far up the field, we can't press anything when we lose the ball.
Yeah.
Right? And for what? They are not offering us an option until, I think what Pineda would say is, well, we got what we want. We can play to Almada, and now when Almada gets the split line ball, he gets a turn, and now he has a secondary option. But when he does that, I'll tell you what happens. Right? So let's say we played Almada and he makes a brilliant turn and he's able to play a 40-yard ball across to Gutman, who's presumably wide open. Right? The problem is 2 problems. Right? One is that he's actually really the biggest problem is he's just standing. Right? Has no momentum. So by the time he collects the ball, turns it up the field and tries to go, the whole defense shifts over.
Yeah.
And all of that, yes, it's better than us losing the ball here, but all of that didn't create anything for us. It doesn't help us offensively at all, right? And so what you'd rather have here is if Gutman was all the way at left back, right? And he's able to play into Almada like he is. And now Almada gets his head up and he can play across to Gutman. Gutman's now running into space. And now Gutman can actually push the ball beyond that line, and he's broken the line on a dribble. Now one of the backs has to step up to address him, and now we're in a good spot.
Yeah.
Right? But right now, if we cross it to Gutman, he's not going to break the line anyway because he's standing, and there's no way anybody is fast enough to trap the ball, move it. Maybe Araujo, but he's not Gutman, right? I think this is to distill down the essence of what's awful about Atlanta United.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it, and I said, we get nothing out of it offensively, and we're risking giving up a breakaway. And as you saw here, we give up the ball, and what happens, Carmen?
They almost score.
Yeah.
Hit
They
the post.
should
They
have.
should
I
have
mean,
scored. We
that
got
was-
lucky.
We got really
Very,
lucky.
very lucky.
As lucky as it gets.
Right? And that guy had to do nothing. He didn't beat a single player. He was able to dribble 40 yards and come straight in on Godinho.
So how did they get their first goal? Was that the PK?
Yeah. Yes.
So
Yes,
I don't know if we want to
yes.
bring that up on the highlights, but so two things on that. Clearly not a penalty kick. Is Godinho clumsy? Sure. But
Yeah, bring it up. You should show the highlight.
But
so that's in the 30-second minute.
It's really hard in the highlight, Carmen, to get the slow motion. So yeah, this is kind of it here. The offensive guy for New England cuts right in front of Godinho. The ball is 20 feet in the air, out of playing distance of either player. So it's completely up for grabs. But Godinho is coming out on a beeline, every right to be going for the ball, and the New England guy just sees this as an opportunity to like hit the brakes and back up kind of into the keeper as the keeper's coming out.
Classic try to draw a foul.
Yeah, classic try to draw the foul, but the ball is 20 feet in the air. It's not in playing distance of the offensive player.
The ball had a horrible spin on it, which I could see right away. I'm like, Godinho, what are you doing? See the spin on it, and he just totally misjudged the spin.
May very well be a foul inside the box.
To me, that is classic obstruction right there. Look at him. He just obstructs the goalkeeper.
Yep.
He knows exactly what he's doing.
Of course.
And you mean to tell me video assistant referee can't see that? He backed up right into him at the last second.
Well, here's the interesting thing, and we've talked about it a little bit if you pause it.
And Godinho looks guilty because he's kind of like a big bear coming out, but that is not his fault, and that should never be called a penalty.
I've told you something, and I think maybe you've disagreed with me a little bit. VAR, the way it's set up, is not actually, the job of VAR is not actually to get the call right. That's not the way it's set up.
I agree.
I think that it should be, but
Right.
that's not the way it's basically to overturn a clear and obvious error, right? And so once there's contact like that, right, VAR is not involved at all. The referee has made a decision in a way place. The only thing you could say is that there was no contact. VAR does not have the opportunity to say, look, I think that was obstruction. And now I think it should. I think the VAR referee should say, you know what? I think you're not going to like that one.
They do it with everything else.
Yeah, I think you're not going to
They
like
noodle
that
with
one. and
everything
you might wanna
else.
take another look.
So, I mean, come on. They've got headphones on there. For them to say, hey, that might have been obstruction, they can't even say that. That's
No,
against,
they're not allowed.
They're not allowed.
No, that's not in the remit of VAR, which is terrible because I agree with you. I think
Are they
if you're the
allowed? Are they
referee-
allowed to say that might be that might be a worse foul because it's a red card or a yellow card? I think they can do that.
Yes.
So why is obstruction not allowed for the VAR? I'm just curious. Asking for a friend.
Well, they just have to say,
Asking for me. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Clear and obvious error, right? So anytime a guy is dribbling and they go for a penalty kick call.
In the EPL though, they did this the other day where there was a really bad kick on somebody's ankle. I forget which game it was. Somebody, and there was a red card. It was a yellow card initially, and then he came back and threw the red card, which I thought was really harsh. And what game was that? I
Don't remember.
It was it was the Tottenham game, Tottenham Arsenal game.
Okay.
So it was like one of the biggest derbies of the year, right?
Yeah, right.
And they on VAR said, "Hey, take another look at that," and he came back and gave him a red, and it shouldn't have been. But anyway, sorry I cut you off, but that's an example where I don't know why they can do it for that instance and not for obstruction.
Yeah, I mean, I think both things are true, which is it wasn't a penalty, shouldn't have been a penalty, but it also was awful goalkeeping, right? He never should slam into him like that and give him the opportunity, right? It suggests that, I think what it suggests to me is that, so Godinho is way, way better than Rios Novo. Yeah. Way better. I mean, just night and day better.
Yeah.
Is Godinho our option? Like, if we had a chance to sign him permanently, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I agree. It didn't look like he was coordinated or hitting the weight room.
Yeah. Well, he's tall and he makes good saves, but he doesn't seem lightning quick or anything. Yeah. And he seems a little awkward the way he moves. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But again, obstruction all day long, should have not been.
To be honest with you, who I don't know whether this is saying something bad or good, but Alec Can.
Yeah.
Right? I think is the exact same goalkeeper as Godinho. Very good goalkeeper.
Yeah. But way more coordinated from all
They
accounts.
both have a very similar, they're big, they're quick on the whatever save, but not quite as good coming out, a little awkward coming out.
I mean, Godinho does seem a little lumbering, but again, I'll take that at the end of the day from like a confidence
But because
standpoint.
they're really tall, they can make saves. They can get to balls.
Exactly. It's just, they can.
And they're both athletic enough to get to saves. So I think they're both good shot stoppers. I think they're both legit MLS goalkeepers.
Yeah.
I would say if we went with Godinho long term, I think he's an absolutely middle of the road MLS goalkeeper, which honestly, that's all you maybe need. Do you need? But there's no way that he's ever even remotely in a Sean Johnson or
no.
whatchamacallit for Philadelphia from Jamaica.
Blake
was amazing, the best goalkeeper in MLS.
He started every game with only like 3 or 4 or 5 other players who had played every minute of every game. DeAndre Blake is in that.
And Philadelphia is probably a head and shoulders above second place almost exclusively because of him. He's probably 10 goals good to the good over a whole season.
That was the other thing when I was looking at the data on players who had played every minute of a game. There's only like 5 players.
Yeah.
And
they're all goalkeepers.
I think I don't know if you want to look at the data here, Carmen. Yeah. If you sort it by minutes, which I think it is, right?
Yeah, it is.
The teams that they play for, are all of them in the playoffs, Dave?
Yep, pretty much. Philadelphia, LA.
I find that kind of an interesting thing. Like if you have that one healthy player that can play every single game, who probably is a good player in most cases here, and that's
Michael Bradley
a big
at
difference.
number 7, they're not in the playoffs.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe I got the data wrong here. So then, as far as the rest of the game goes, Dave, I just remember being just disappointed because I'm trying to relax on a Saturday, and up until late in the game when Josef Martinez ends up on the field, I think he came on after halftime in the 54th minute.
So it was in the second half. I think it was, somewhere around that 60th, somewhere in there. The first sub. So Martinez, Mosquero, and Josetu come on. And, of course, who leaves? Right? Sedic and Cisneros, the guys who should never have been in the game to begin with. So is that, Pineda realizing that, that wasn't such a good decision? Or anyway.
Yes, Dave, it is, because it's ridiculous. I mean, it really is ridiculous that those two, and that can't be emphasized enough, I don't think, that Amar Sedic and Cisneros starting this game, we've used the word criminal. It is criminal.
But you know what the problem is? There's a third sub, right? So 2 forwards come off and 3 attackers go on, right?
Yeah.
So how do you think he accommodated that? You want to tell you?
Tell me.
So he brought off Hernandez.
Brought Mascara in,
and
right?
he brought Lennon back to right back.
Okay. But didn't he bring Mascara in at some point?
Mascara, Josetu, and Martinez all came on. Cisneros, Sedic, and Hernandez went off. So he went back in this critical moment, right? So it was a very aggressive sub, but we went back. He changed a bunch of things to get us to the good, right? I think you and I would much rather have Martinez. I don't think either of us would have gone with Mascaro. We would have gone with Moreno,
yeah.
right? But it's a little closer to what we want. Josetu's good, coming on, and he brought off the two
Moreno on his
terrible
naughty
guys.
list. Why is Moreno on his naughty list? I don't get it, man.
But he still makes the error in that he goes back to one step forward, two steps back, right? Because instead of leaving, you're making an aggressive sub, bringing on two really good attackers. Why not leave Hernandez on? They're doing nothing offensively, right? Why not? And to be honest, if you go to the 70th minute, you'll see that Lennon should have cost us the game again. Is absolutely horrendous defending, right? He's pinched in so far.
So this is what's the setup here?
I think it was.
Is it on the highlights?
Is it this one? You can let it play. Yeah, it's either this one or the next one. It is, I think, on the highlights. But.
All right. So 70th minute, 33.
Let's see what we got.
Here's Heel.
Yeah, right here.
Bo is out.
And he can't get back, right? So go back to the beginning of that play again. Now that you have it, go back 10 seconds, right to where you have it frozen before. Yeah, just leave it there. Leave it right there, right? So Lennon is playing right back.
It's 5v1, Dave. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that is because why is Lennon going to be the fifth guy defending? And it's really more like 4v1 because Gutman's out wide with one guy. But it's 4v1. Why is he going to be the fourth guy defending and leaving his guy wide
I wonder
open?
how many frames it would take to find a defense in this position in the EPL. I don't know. I just don't get it.
This is the problem. So first of all, Lennon's not an instinctive defender. Second of all, the coaches have clearly instructed them to pinch in for God only knows what reason.
Right.
And so that's done two things. So one, he's pinched in way too far because the coaches have told him, and he has no instinct for realizing that it's
because we
got to get
all
back.
got taught that in college. Guilty.
Well,
but that's
Gutman
the
has
problem.
some instinct. Gutman, knows when it shouldn't be pinched in anymore. And
Right.
he's like, I don't care what the coach is doing. I have to go out there a little bit and address this. Lennon doesn't. And we've seen this now multiple times this season where they just play it across. Nobody gets beaten here, right?
Yeah.
Lennon just can't get back to where the guy is. So now let it play again.
Bo is out wide. Bo.
And how he doesn't score that.
How? Yeah.
It's just awful. It's just terrible finishing. Right? But I mean,
So there's two sitters for New England that they should have scored, regardless of whether
and
they
they're
got
both coming
a
off
bogus
of the
penalty kick.
classic things that we have been doing all season long. You and I have been talking about it all season long, right? And so why has nobody addressed that? If you're Pineda, right, and you obviously review tape, right, and you go back and review that tape, and you say, all right, we gave up a horrible chance. What was wrong? What caused that? How could you not freeze it like where we just saw and say, hey, I know the problem.
Yeah.
Right?
So Dave, you want to go to zonal corner kick marking?
Yeah,
in this
we've
game?
had this controversy. We've been talking about it all season, the argument over whether we're zonal marking on defense. And I have said, yes, we are heavily zonal marking. We only have a couple of guys playing man-to-man. And I finally got a chance to take a picture again of the screen, and I think I can prove in this clip that we are zonal marking. Right. So if you're watching on the YouTube
Well, for
channel,
the record, I only argued on that one play that we may have been set up as man v man. So
and we weren't. We just looked like we were man v man because the offense happened to be standing right next to our zonal marking.
Fair.
Because we were in this exact same formation, which is crazy. And so first of all, we do have 3 man v man marking at the penalty spot, right? We have 3v3 marking their guys who are going to run. Okay. And, ironically, what I have said the whole time is that, the only reason to have a zonal player is because sometimes on corner kicks, which is what is a defensive corner, a guy will get picked off, will make a good run. And if you don't have a zonal guy, the guy who gets, who loses his defender via a pick gets an absolutely open run, right? And so actually,
I just want to point out, like in this, to your point, like the guy who's standing right in front of the goalkeeper.
yeah.
I mean, I would love to be that guy.
Yeah.
Nobody's inside of me.
It's the definition of a zone, Mikey
There's
Dubs.
nobody who's going to be able to bump him. There's nobody.
Yes.
He can do two things, Dave. He can run near post and try to do
Yes.
something. He can all of a sudden drop back to the back post.
Yes.
Like there's
Yes.
the world is his oyster, man.
Yes. When have you ever seen anybody instruct, except for on professional stupid zonal marking, for somebody to leave a guy in goal side, step inside the 6-yard box? What's that all about? And that's how you know it's zonal marking, right? Because you might say, "Oh, he's on that guy," but you know it's zonal because if it was anywhere man to man, he'd be goal side.
Well, no, I mean I think that is the signal you look for, right? There's a guy that's like at least within a couple feet from him with his hips turned, identifying the guy as this is my guy. So even like number 7, you might argue that whoever's at the top of the 6 could have him because he's got his hips turned a little bit. Yeah. He's going to play number 7. Hernandez might have that guy, but I'd have to see the play unfold whether he's actually paying attention to him. But clearly nobody's marking the guy in front of the goalkeeper. Those 3 are set up, to your point, to be at least 4 of them clearly zone. 4 of them are clearly zone.
I don't think that the average player in any soccer team, not our team, not anything, is smart enough to play zone in this situation. Yeah. The only way you do it is if you're smart enough to be like, not only am I starting in this zone, but my whole point of this is to actually get to this area and to match up out of it. But in this case, they don't do it. And, it's so easy to overload this. All you have to do is put 2 or 3 guys in one spot and we'll mark them with 1.
It's as you say,
overload the zone.
As you say this, there's 2 things I know.
Yeah.
If I was ever coached to play zone defense on a corner kick, I didn't follow instructions, and I've never
it didn't exist when you were.
And I've never played zone on a corner ever. There's always a man I'm accountable for. Yeah. At least in my mind. Yeah. I might be too fat and old to keep up with him, but I'm gonna at least give it my best.
Right. But here's the ultimate irony, right? So one of the players at the top of at the penalty spot does actually get picked off. I think maybe it's even Sosa. And so one of the New England players breaks free and runs towards the near post. And if you notice, if there's anything our zone is designed to do, is to have 3 guys who are dressing that near post run and are going to win the ball, right? So you would think that one of those zonal markers would go win the ball. The ball drops just outside the 6-yard box, and New England gets a free header, Mikey Dobbs. If you see where we're starting here, can you imagine a near post run just outside the 6-yard box, then them winning the ball?
All right, because
we have 3 players closer to that spot than they do.
Because if you are going to play zone defense, if that's your thing, then you're damn well better get to the ball first. And where are we best positioned to get to the ball first right now, Dave?
Near post.
Okay.
Yeah. So
there's that. Do you want to move on? Or you want to...
So actually, I wonder if I think they must probably have it. Go to the 16th minute and the actual highlights, because that's where that was, the 16th minute.
16th.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
Oh.
Yeah,
right about there. I was just go ahead there.
That was just after it. That was the you went too far. The replay of it. A little further. Yeah, here, play it.
Good enough.
So watch where they get the free header.
See, this is not me trying to do this. Doing it while trying to talk is just. Oh, there we go. Off the post. Was that close to another goal, Carmen?
Yeah. Well, look
Very
at it.
close.
Look at where he heads the ball from.
He was wide open.
Well,
it's a free header.
It's a free header, and it's right to where we had 3 players standing.
Oh, woodwork. Thank you.
And we get the woodwork again.
A lot of woodwork in this game. That's at least 2,
So
right?
now we're talking about a third terrible thing that we haven't addressed. And once again, it should have been a goal, right? So, if you're Pineda after this game, you're like, oh, maybe we deserve better. The answer is no. No, we didn't deserve better because we should have given up 3 goals on those situations for the same 3 mistakes we've been making all season, right? I mean, ultimately, it's a fitting way to go after it, right? So, all right.
So we've subbed in the people we talked about earlier.
And in the 75th minute, he goes to the second sub, right? let's see.
Sosa came off, right?
Morena and Wiley were on for Sosa and Araujo.
Yeah.
So he brings on 2 more attackers, Moreno and Wiley, right? And my notes, which were taken contemporaneously.
Love that word, by the way.
Big word. Bring it.
75th minute. And it said, let's just bring on all the attackers and pray. No need to worry about winning the ball back or having any balance, right? And indeed, because we're down 1-0 at this point, right? And because of the dang penalty kick, right? And so in the 81st minute, Martinez, bless his heart, scores what I happen to think is maybe the best goal in history. And so let's go to that first, right? I mean, because if anybody who hasn't seen it, go to YouTube and just play this clip over and over and over and over and over. Plays it out to Lennon wide. Lennon crosses.
I mean, it is straight up nasty. At this point, I had given up on the game, which stinks because I missed it in like real time. I had to look up and watch the replay.
Yeah.
So I kind of missed the bang of it.
Okay, so I have something to say about this. You know what this is?
What's that?
You know how many goals we've scored off of crosses in the season?
Oh, now is that the third from Lennon? Second.
It's the second by the team all season.
And let's not say that wasn't an easy one either.
Yeah, it was a great finish.
It wasn't an easy
don't
one.
you think you're going to score that one every time, Mikey Dobbs?
And it's funny on Twitter.
And you know what the funny thing I said is when we were talking about this all season, I'm like, the problem is Lennon's crossing to nobody who can finish. I said the only one who finishes that is occasionally Martinez will do something spectacular and score a great goal. And people think, oh, Martinez can score off that. He doesn't really routinely score after that. He scores the occasional spectacular goal off that. It's a header where he skies, or it's, in that case, like a bicycle kick.
Oh, it's silly.
But most of the goals that he scores are balls on the ground where he got it through the middle.
You don't see a lot of bicycles like that where it's pure foot and just ripped in, where the goalkeeper on this, like the goalkeeper, it's beautiful, like with the Wayne Rooney one and this one where he just watches it. He's just like, oh my God. He literally looked in the back of the net. That's how fast it happened, because it was just raw power on that. And on the Twitter universe, there was people, when people were calling it a bicycle kick, saying, oh no, that's a scissors kick. And come on. First off, it was in between a scissors kick and a bicycle kick, technically. Okay. So you know what the winner goes to? It goes to bicycle kick.
Yeah.
When you're half upside down, and he was definitely in that more
3/4.
It was like a, at that 60-degree angle.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call it a bike, Dave.
I was going to go a 75-degree angle, but
it was
it's definitely in between the 90 and the 50.
So
I keep playing this over and over again.
Yeah,
This
you
is
should.
just so
just
pretty.
let it keep going.
Oh, that's so nice.
that's a bicycle kick. I'm sorry. If I ever did that, that's definitely bicycle kick all day long. That's not a scissors kick. Even scissors kick is almost as hard, if not harder, than a bicycle kick to some degree. Mm-hmm. So,
all right. So, and one of the things I want to point out, which we can't show in clips or whatever, but the guy who's creating absolutely everything, including that goal, Moreno. Right, Moreno's the one who fed the beautiful ball to Lennon.
My favorite player.
Right, when Lennon comes in off the
besides Almada at this point, but Moreno.
When Moreno comes in off the bench, he was by far the best player on the field for the last 15, 20 minutes.
You think? The guy who scored the most goals during the first third of the season, and then just was mysteriously
He didn't forget
benched?
how to play well.
No.
But here's the thing, right? And this is what I said, about. So we have to win this game, right? You're Pineda, you have to win this game, right? And, there's a tendency when you're down, you got to win the game, is you got to throw everything on, right? Yeah. If you're a coach, don't do that, right? It never works, right? When you come back, it's not saying that you can't push an extra guy forward. You still have to have balance. Any team that ever comes back, you get the goal by pushing maybe an extra guy forward or bringing in an extra attacking player. Then you get the momentum, right? But you keep the balance, right? And that's how you run, those games where somebody suddenly comes back and scores 3 goals in a row. It's not because they brought on 4 forwards. No. It almost never happens.
Again, I hate to keep bringing up the EPL, but you watch it, nothing much changes in the back. Those guys are all there playing defense. They just know how to recycle it back up, because it always happens naturally the last 10 minutes of these games anyway, where they're going to park the bus and whatever. But yeah, you got to bring in the players who are going to be able to break down that defense creatively. And so, yeah, I still feel like you still have to have that core in the back.
So, can you guess how we're going to give up the last goal?
Honestly, I don't remember because it just happened and I went and ate my pork that I made on that big green egg that I was telling you about.
So, it comes off Mikey Dobbs, an offensive corner.
How many people do we have back, Dave?
How many people do you think we left back?
One.
Let's go to the clip.
I can't wait to see this
Let's go to the clip.
Oh, do you know what minute it is?
I mean, and there is a YouTube video that I posted from some of the clips from our last podcast where it was criminal by Pineda to make that decision, and here it is again. But it was even more criminal in that last game where things really mattered. In that Toronto game, it was really criminal.
Yeah.
In this game, the playoffs are already really out of. I mean,
yeah, but it just goes to show you, like, even when you think it'd be on, they didn't show it where it comes from.
Oh.
But there they go.
It looks like we were clearing it or whatever, but
that guy was able to get it done that time.
So you know who the one guy back was?
No, was it a Marsetic off the bench?
No, because he was on the bench. They left Cosetto as the only guy, only defender back.
The same strategy. They're like, whoever that position
Whoever is the worst defender on the team, we're going to put him back.
That's smart. That's real smart.
So what happens here is they get a counterattack, and you can see they make a mess of it, right? Nobody wins the ball, and they're able to come, clear. And, God bless Parata, who Parata's been scoring all the goals. I mean, talk about heart that guy has.
Yeah.
He's the first guy back. He sprinted from the 6-yard box where he was, and he ends up as the furthest guy back up the field. And people will blame him because he actually gets beat at the very end of this play. But God bless him, he sprinted back from the entire field, right?
Yeah.
So he ends up, that guy who's trying to make the play, and he goes, but you know why he runs by him at the end right there? At the very end, there's a cut back and the guy scores. You know why he does that? Because he's just run 114 yards.
You don't think he's got the stamina to really hold his ground there and deal with that cutback, you're saying? No. Okay.
Not after you run 114
No, because now
yards.
we've got him labeled as Air Juan. That's his main job, not to defend.
And that's fine. And you, of course, you're 1-1, you got to score. He absolutely has to be in the 6-yard box.
I'm with you there. But point being is, why is just Josetu back? Same situation.
And the funny thing is, you say, all right, well, we should be going for it. But here's two things about that. And here's why that comment is BS. So first of all, as we pointed out, we had the exact same, formation when we shouldn't have been going for it when we were up 3-2, right? In the Toronto game, right? We never should have done it there. And so it has nothing to do with us going for it. That's our formation, right? That's just period. And so that's the first thing you say about Pineda is, if you don't have any situational anything, you might say, look, maybe we should have been there in that moment, but we never should have been in the other moment. But here's my other problem with it. So many times you're going to score on a corner in two ways. One, it's crossed and Parata goes air one and he scores, right? The other way is they get the first clearance out. They don't clear it as far and somebody comes in and gets a hit on it, right? Those guys need to be 2-3 guys outside the, right at the top of the 18 to do that. Right? We don't leave it. It's stupid.
Game, set, match. Season is over. We've got NYFC, there's another letter in their thing, right? NYCFC.
Okay. Well, I have a quote for you. Wait, I have a quote for you first.
Yeah.
So I wrote it down because I thought we needed to hear it. So Pineda was asked after the game about Josef Martinez.
Yeah.
And why he didn't start.
Right.
You want to hear it?
I do want to hear it.
My decision again, he said.
It's a multitude of factors or something.
We coaches, we live and die by our decisions. We have, as you can imagine, way more information throughout the week, the season, on players. And we make decisions based on that, based on what we see day by day in training sessions. At times, I can make great decisions. At times, I cannot. So we're talking about how good of a performance we have had in the last 3 games, and no one asked those questions. But today we lose, and I can imagine people at this moment ask those questions. And what I want to say to you, Pineda, you and I, Mikey Dobbs, we've been asking those questions even during the wins. We could see that it was not working.
Yep.
Right? You can't just say we've had a couple of good results. It wasn't because we fixed anything.
Right. We gave ourselves a very hard time during the 4-2 Toronto game. Like, that game was just as dicey as this one.
We talked about it on the podcast, right? And that's the point, right? If you can't see it and you think suddenly a good set of results are coming because we have fixed anything and you haven't fixed it, then it's going to collapse again. Right? Yep. You have to be able to fix something by actually changing something successfully, not by having just a couple of fluky things start to go for you. It's not a way to coach.
Carmen, where's that fire button? Come on.
He's heating up. He's on fire.
There we go. So that's all Dave has to say about that.
That's all I have to say.
All right. So, yeah, we are looking forward to 2023 with a coach that, this really is difficult. I'm not going to lie. This is tough as doing this podcast, because this was never how we took the narrative of any other podcasts, which is really just breaking down the issue being coaching versus, other players and things that are mixed into the equation.
We've had some moments where the squad was really a problem.
Yeah. And with the Breck Shea days. But this is really troubling as a fan, and we're not here on the podcast to not be fans of the team, but it's really disheartening with what we're seeing and no signs of change. I mean, we've rounded out the season. Like, if you're going to make any dramatic changes as a coach when the writing's on the wall, like, it's just not going to happen in 2023. I hate to say it.
The change that he made that he thinks worked was he brought, instead of having all of our attacking options on, he balanced it a little bit, right? And so he had, instead of, having Moreno on the field, instead of having Josef Martinez on the field, he had Sejdic on the field. He had Cisneros, who he thinks, even though Cisneros a forward or Dom Dwyer, his point being that they're more of a team player and they're more defensive, right? And even though they don't score, they help us win because they're actually creating pressure, right? It's just BS, Mikey Dobbs, because we don't create pressure with those guys and win the ball up the field anyway. And the problem is he's never realized that you have to win the ball up the field. The system is the same system that Schmeitzer plays in Seattle, right? And to be honest with you, it doesn't fit the modern game at all. The modern game, when you win games, you turn the ball over up the field. If you're Klopp, if you're, all those guys are copying Guardiola and Klopp, and we're not, right? Yeah. And what they have realized is that the easiest way to score goals is to only break down one or two players when they're not set, right? And this system is designed 100% not to do that, right? And the ironic part about it is Pineda has talked a lot of the season about, getting pressure, and he was mad that the guys weren't getting pressure. Start with the system. The system is not designed for pressure at all. You cannot pressure off the tactics that he's using.
So, Dave, we're 33 games through the MLS season.
Yep.
Everybody who's in the MLS has played 33 games.
Yep.
Do you want to dig into the data and ask the data any questions of where players stand, where the teams netted out?
Well, I will say, so we finished with 10 wins, 13 losses, and 10 ties. Okay. In our, and we had 47 goals for and 52 against. In our title winning side, right? In 2018, right? We finished with 69 points. We had 21 wins, right? 6 losses and 7 ties, right? We scored 70 and gave up 44.
Wow.
So we are a long way.
That is a mountain to climb, my friend.
Yes. I just went back
With
and
a team that every one of these people keep blaming it on the injuries, man. It just drives me nuts, man. Nothing to do with it.
Nope.
If you're listening to this podcast, it had nothing to do with the injuries.
You could maybe argue that if you didn't win the Supporter Shield and you only finished second or third, maybe you say, all right, we didn't pick up points in the early part of the season when we suddenly lost Robinson and whatever. That was the key loss. Right before we were able to, nail it down with Prada, or even the game before we signed Godinho when we, all you had was Rios Novo.
Yeah.
Right? So you would say, okay, those injuries would cost us a couple.
There was a tough little window there.
Right.
I agree with that. There was a tough 3 to 4 game stretch.
But first of all, every team has that.
Every
and
team.
Second of all, that's only going to cost you a few points.
Exactly. So that's my point, is like come out with 1 point, maybe if you're lucky 2, 3 points in that.
Yeah.
But to blame that on where we ended up this season is I'll take a little more splash of that. It's hiding under a rock. So what do you think?
So do you want to have a whole nother podcast about? So I presume you're on the side of Fire Pineda.
Yeah, I mean at this point, because the thing is, we are. You talk about a mountain to climb. We're at rock bottom. I think the fans right now are seasoned with enough bullcrap that's happened in the last 2.5 years, right? That like to say that you're keeping Pineda around for the sake of stability is stupid. We don't need stability. We don't have stability.
No,
we have a shitty situation.
We have losing
and
stability.
So the fans I don't think are going to care at all if you fire Pineda, so long as, to your point, Dave, you have a better solution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's find a better solution, and then make, which is what pissed me off so much about them panicking and announcing that they're going to stick with Pineda after Eros Campoyo.
Right.
Because that was more of a PR thing than the front office using its brain. It was like, oh, we've got a battle between Martinez and the coach. We got to let the coach win here. So we're going to show the coach that we're backing him. He's our guy for 2023 because we need stability. Crazy decisions based on Cannon or who was in that conference room that was like, we need to come out with a statement and say that Pineda's our guy.
Right.
No one cares, Cannon. We're 12th in the table at this point, or whatever we are.
Right.
We're as bad as you get when you have all this talent that you invested in, $40 million. And
usually when you back the guy is when you're like, if the team's not good enough, but you want it, but you got a guy who people like, and you're like, we can recruit off of him, and so you back him to say, look, you can come here and he's going to be here if he's the guy who's got some insider, connections to those players. Nobody's coming here for Pineda. Nobody.
No.
Right? Yeah. And so why back the guy for that?
Correct. No, yeah. I mean, even with Frank de Boer, you would say, there's good reasons players would have come to play under him. He had success at Ajax, he knows the game.
Right.
He's no, it's just, he's no Tata, but come on.
Right. So
just trying to find the silver lining.
We
here,
can
Dave.
go through. I have a whole analysis of all the coaches. I don't think we're going to do it now, but do you want to talk about? So I think that we should fire the coach if and only we have the better replacement.
Right.
I have 2 names who I think would be better who are available.
Let's briefly go into it. Yeah.
So one is the obvious one, Tata Martino.
Yeah. Which I don't think is going to happen. I mean, we'd love it to happen. Well, a couple things. I think he's happy to go out on a winning note on a club. He's going to probably be pretty exhausted coming off the World Cup with Mexico in terms of just the expectations. I mean, it is a big opportunity for Mexico. They've got a good generation of players. They haven't had the best lead up to the World Cup.
Yeah, everybody keeps getting injured.
But
not his fault.
Yeah, not his fault. But Yeah, the other thing was that he wanted to spend more time with his family, and that was clearly stated by him. That's in Argentina, and coaching for a national team where like the day-to-day rigor is less. That was afforded to him with the Mexico national team. I also imagine the flight back from Mexico City or wherever he does his coaching is a little faster to Argentina than where his family is. So reading the tea leaves, I just don't think it's going to happen.
But he's had like 4 years of spending time with his family and having all that downtime. I think he's probably not tired, even though there is a lot of stress on this World Cup. International coaching is a pretty cushy job. You don't do much.
So who's ringing? So this is the other reason I don't think it's who's ringing him up. Carlos Bocanegra?
Yeah, they're not friends.
Hey, I mean, who's the guy? We don't have a president yet, which leads me to the other thing is like, who's our president at this point?
Don't have one.
Who should be before we get to talk about the coach? Like, who's our president?
I don't know. I don't know enough about the people at that level.
Yeah, I don't know anything about those people at that level. And should it be a European person that's got experience? Should it be another MLS person with experience? But I'm very worried that anybody wants that job right now. There's a lot. That's a high pressure job for an organization that has the best fan base in MLS with a situation where you're at rock bottom. You better get it right.
So the other coach who I think is available and would come and looks good to me is Diego Coca. So Diego Coca is originally from Argentina. He had a very successful career with many Argentine teams, River Plate, Argentine Juniors, right? He also played a little bit in Spain with Deportivo Español, and he played a little bit in Mexico with Atlas. He finished his career at Barranfield in Argentina. So he has been coaching since the year that he left playing, so he clearly loves coaching.
Yep.
He has won and won and won and won, mostly at tiny little clubs where he didn't really have a big chance. He got his first big chance in 2020 with Atlas, right? He won the title in year one in Mexico. He won the title in year 2 in Mexico. He got off to a mediocre start in year 3, and they sacked him.
I'll take him.
So he has Argentina connections, the Spanish. I
like that because the worst thing that could happen is, and this is another thing I'm worried about with Atlanta, is losing that credibility with Argentina, which is, at least how we're still designed to bring younger players in, which I personally love. Like I would rather be the equation of just the balance of things, of bringing in young, exciting players like Almada that we can move on. I don't know how sustainable that is. Maybe it worked the first 2-3 seasons for Atlanta United, but you have to have that lifeline of belief for a player to really want to come to Atlanta United. Unless Arthur's bank check just matters so much, it doesn't really matter, which is kind of what seemed to happen with Almada. Is he's like, I don't want to go to Atlanta United. Like, doesn't matter. You're going anyway because Atlanta United is going to pay us all this money.
Right.
So maybe we don't need it. I don't know.
So Atlas, which is his previous coaching position in Mexico, he won the title with Atlas in 2021, the Apertura, right? Do you know when their last title was, Mikey Dobbs?
I'm going to go 1987, Dave.
It's 1951.
Oh, damn. Only a couple decades off.
Who fires the coach after winning the title since 1951, right? He wins the title, and then he gets off to a mediocre start in the next year, and they sack him.
Yeah.
You're like, you've had a long time without titles. Don't you think you'd want to see whether he can do it again? I mean, Mexico's notorious for this. They're just sacking people left and right. But anyway, he would have certainly connections. It would have the respect of the South American players, right? For sure. And he has had a title winning. He's won he won a major division title with a mediocre side. And he had a whole history of all these little clubs that he's done amazingly well with. He's won with every team he's had.
I like it. But again, Doesn't seem like enough people are listening to the podcast, Dave. But for you guys who are listening, we so much appreciate it.
To be honest with you, I don't know really anything about him personality-wise, and that's a big thing. So I'm not suggesting we necessarily hire him. Maybe he's a total jerk and a loose cannon or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's certainly someone I would look into is based on his record alone. I actually think we put so much into who people are and whatever, and mostly you are who your record is, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's circumstances, right? So, if you're coaching the worst team, in a division, and you
like
did
even
amazing.
Frank DeBoer when he went to the English team, it was the
Cardiff,
Yeah,
and
it
he got
was-
sacked after a few games. That was lousy.
yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really use that as ammo.
No, I agree with you. And so you have to do some, assessment. But, you want coaches, you want coaches who win.
Yeah.
That helps. That helps.
It's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
All right, Dave. Anything else you want to get into?
Yeah. I mean, did you watch the Man United Man City game?
I did not watch it live. I watched the highlights. Erling Haaland hat trick and 2 assists.
When I said that Erling Haaland was going to score 50 goals, and you were like, that sounds like a lot, maybe.
I don't think that. I don't think you were talking to me. I really don't. I think you're mixing
I'll have
things
to go
up.
back and look at.
I'm a Holland. Like I think I'd be shooting for 60. I don't see me pushing back on your number there.
I think you said, oh, maybe you're like, and in fairness to you, right?
Is this on one of the podcasts?
Yeah, on the podcast.
All right, Carmen, keep me on. I think Dave's going to his imagination here.
All right. I'll have to do some research. See what was actually said.
But in fairness to you, right? So the leading scorer in the Premier League typically scores 20. So to say someone's going to score 50 is pretty.
What's he have?
ridiculous
14 now. So far in the season, 14 goals.
He scored hat tricks in his last 3 games.
Yeah, he's got 14 goals. He's
Freak of nature.
Yeah, he's already beaten Luis Suarez for more goals than UCL play.
Yeah.
Already this early on in his career.
Well, the thing about Man City is that they had a team that just creates and creates and creates, and they lacked the fulcrum, the person who could really just finish it all off. They now have the best finisher in the world, and maybe I would say the best player in the world.
Yeah.
And he's just having a field day. It's just buckets worth of goals.
Yeah, I mean, there was a play where somebody slotted him straight up the middle, and it was the most impressive, like just shielding and just shrugged the guy off on a kind of just a delayed slotted pass right up the middle of the top of the 18, and he just shields the guy and kind of like turns and just slams it into the goal. You're like, how is that happen at that level of soccer that a defender can just get muscled by a guy like that?
Yeah.
There's just more of that. More of it's coming. It's unless that guy gets injured, knock on wood, because I love watching it. I'm not a Man City fan, but I love watching it.
So our friends, Men in Blazers, were suggesting a new series of rules.
Yeah.
Erling Haaland has to play with Phil Foden on his back.
Yeah.
And after he scores his first goal, all of his goals have to be scored with his buttocks.
I think Foden right now has a lot to be happy for that he's got Erling Haaland as his teammate because it's making him look way better than he is.
Well, he's a good player, and he's got good movement, but he's a little on the undersized player. He can be knocked around. I don't think he's a lead-the-line kind of guy. But when he's playing off of Erling Haaland and Erling Haaland is getting all the attention, he's going to score 25 goals too, right? Because he's made for that role.
Yeah.
He's a very good player, don't get me wrong. I just don't think that he's a special lead the line. Like people are like, oh, make him the star of England. And I'm like, I would love to say Kane, leading the line and Foden playing off of him. That's the same combination. Let Kane take all the physicality and all the attention and Foden get into little gaps behind him. That's a really good combo.
Yeah.
Have you all heard on social media they're talking about the Holland factor that they should do at the World Cup?
No.
They say, of course it's a joke, but they're saying that a team one time during the whole World Cup can pull some lever and get Eric Haaland helicoptered and dropped in to play for your team for half an hour.
Nice.
So we can see him in the World Cup.
Probably
We don't know.
pull that lever.
Light up. Pull it.
I'm pulling a lever again.
Pull it.
Wait, coach, I'm pulling again. There's nothing happening.
I know, but just the fact he won't be in the World Cup.
It's
It's Darn it.
Yeah, it's depressing.
I heard the jokes about who's better, the country of Holland or Erling Haaland. The entire team.
Yeah. You would definitely give up 3 or 4 Dutch players for one.
Oh, yeah, I'd give up the whole Dutch team.
Yeah. Well, World Cup is going to be around the corner soon. We're going to do some podcasts through the World Cup. We've got the final game of the season. We'll do a season-ending recap, I'm sure, as part of the podcast feature here.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of podcasts hopefully we'll be able to do through the winter and maybe actually get the fire going here.
Yeah, we'll have that for Thanksgiving, because the first game is the Monday of Thanksgiving week.
Yeah.
The second U.S. game is the day after Thanksgiving, and the third game is the Tuesday following Thanksgiving, Thursday. So you pig out on Thursday, Thanksgiving. You're like, that Friday is always like, what am I going to do except for shop at like whatever hour? But after you've shopped at whatever hour and you come home and take a nap, 2:00, World Cup.
So, yeah, I'm thinking about having a big party here on the England.
That sounds terrible.
England-U.S. game.
I mean, great.
Because I think it's a pretty early game.
All the games are at 2.
Yeah, 2:00. So get here, play some cornhole.
I'm in.
Get the grill going. So emails come.
Okay.
Sorry, listeners, you're not invited.
And on that note,
I was about to say, no, you're all invited.
You're all invited
You're
to
all
the.
invited.
We could
we
do
could
a live
have Fan
podcast.
Appreciation Day.
Yeah. Good call. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.